Hey, this is Jeff, guitar player for Diet of Wires, and this is my rig rundown for 2023. I mostly want to focus on my pedalboard, but I'll briefly mention a few of my guitars and amps. I mostly play PRS guitars. The three I use most often with Diet of Wires are my SE Single Cut, my SE Floyd, and my S2 Vila Prototype. I use a lot of whammy bar in Diet of Wires, so the Single Cut and the SE Floyd see a lot of use. But the Vila is probably my favorite guitar when I don't need a whammy bar. My current amps are the PRS Archon, the Vox AC15, and the Fender Deluxe Reverb. The records all use the Archon and the AC15 or amp sims. The Deluxe Reverb reissue is my most recent amp, and I wasn't on the record, but my goal was always to pair up the AC15 with the Deluxe Reverb reissue. And there are several Deluxe Reverb amp sims on the records. My pedalboard rig is mostly based around the Boss ES8 switching system and the Line 6 HX Stomp. The actual pedalboard itself is a Pedal Train Novo 24. I've got a Chox chocolate power supply underneath and a patch bay from American Loopers. I mostly just use the patch bay to connect my guitar to the pedalboard, but it does have a tip ring sleeve output to connect to an amp foot switch jack and a send return loop if I want to use an amp's effects loop with the switching system, mostly the PRS Archon. The ES8 switcher is the heart of the pedalboard. It connects all my pedals, sends MIDI controls to the 4 digital pedals, and it allows me to rearrange almost all the elements in my pedalboard anytime I need. The first loop is the MXR Phase 95. The second loop is the MXR Timmy, the MXR 108 Classic Fuzz. That loop mostly goes to the Vox AC15 amp. The third loop is the Ibanez 850 Fuzz into the Nobles ODR1 Mini. That mostly goes to the Deluxe Reverb now. The fourth loop is the MXR Flanger. The fifth loop is the Boss SY200 Synth. The sixth loop is the input, the front end of the HX Stomp. Loop 7 is the MXR Stereo Chorus. Then loop 8 is a full stereo loop with the Nemesis delay going into the Ventris Reverb. There is a ninth loop on the Boss ES8, which is they call the volume loop. That is where I put the send return loop for my Archon 50. Then the ES8 outputs go into the FX return of the Line 6 HX Stomp, where I can put more effects from the HX Stomp. The HX Stomp is the endpoint of my rig, which I can then connect to my tube amps or connect directly to a mixer or recording interface if I want to play ampless. There are 3 other inputs into the Boss ES8, which are my expression pedal, a 2-button momentary switch, and I do have a dangling MIDI input cable if I want to connect the ES8 to my DAW for recording, if I want to get all of the tempo synced up directly to the recording. I route the expression pedal into the ES8, where I can then send expression via MIDI to the HX Stomp, the Nemesis delay, the Ventris Reverb, and probably the SY200, but I haven't really used that yet. So I can use the expression pedal to control anything from a volume pedal, a wah, or a whammy on the HX Stomp. I could do delay time for oscillating delay on either the HX Stomp or the Nemesis, or reverb mix on the Ventris or the HX Stomp. Pretty much any parameters you want you can control via MIDI with the expression pedal, which is really convenient. The 2-button momentary switch is actually a key part of how I play live with the ES8. I set up the ES8 so that each preset covers one song. The initial state of the preset usually covers the intro of the song or maybe the verse. Then I'll click the left momentary switch to change to a new tone, usually for the chorus. I'll click the right button on the momentary switch to change to a third tone, usually for a bridge or an outro. And then I might do some smaller changes throughout the song by turning on individual pedals or turning them off changing loops with the ES8. I've recorded 2 clips just to show how everything works. The first clip is from our song Fireflies. The song starts off with a clean guitar. I've got a compressor up front from the HX Stomp, then goes into the MXR stereo chorus. Plus some delay and reverb from the Nemesis and the Ventress. I hit the left momentary button to kick on the 2 distortion circuits. When I hit the left momentary switch, it also turns off the stereo chorus, it adds the phase 95, and it turns off the Nemesis delay. I can then hit the left momentary switch a second time and go back to the clean verse sound. Or if I tap the right momentary button, I'll set up the bridge section of the song where I add a droning D note from the 3 oscillator synth on the HX Stomp pedal, plus some tremolo effects on both the guitar and the synth. The second clip is from our cover of Staying Alive by the Bee Gees. It starts off with a big muff fuzz and a -1 octave pitch effect from the HX Stomp, plus a splash of reverb from the Ventress. Tap the left momentary switch to change back and forth from the fuzz to a clean tone with wah-wah and a little bit of delay from the Nemesis for about half of the verse parts. Then I click the right momentary switch from the clean tone to add my 2 overdrive circuits, and this will also keep the delay from the clean part. When I hit the left momentary switch again, it'll turn off the 2 overdrive loops, switch back to the big muff and the -1 octave pitch effect using a MIDI CC command, and it'll also turn the delay off. I've been using the Boss ES8 switching system for about 5 to 6 years at this point, and it's pretty essential to how I use effects pedals with Diet of Wires.
And that's how we make stuff. Please leave any comments or questions. We're happy to answer them. And pretty please like and subscribe.